The path to any new desired outcome is littered with tiny transformations. Think of it as a straight line, that journey to your new outcome, with the far left saying you are here, and over to the far right is the desired outcome or the goal you want to achieve. Now imagine this is a straight line and there's dozens of tiny little X's along that straight line. Those tiny little X's mark the tiny transformations that are part of every journey to a goal, big or small, really. So that's what change looks like. And it doesn't actually look like a straight line. We all know that there's ups and downs to all changes, but for the purposes of this video, we're just going to pretend it's a straight line to simplify things. I believe in simplify to amplify. So knowing change, straight line, you are here, this is where you want to go, tons of tiny transformations along the way. Today we're going to talk about how to actually create those tiny transformations, first for yourself as the leader, but learning those for yourself is going to enable you to coach the people you lead to do it for themselves also. So let's dive in. All it takes to create a new outcome is to think differently, feel differently, and do differently. That's it. Do this over and over and over again, creating tiny transformations along the way, and you will eventually create your desired result. The reason many people become overwhelmed with big goals is because achieving a big goal isn't possible without change. And a lot of people are really uncomfortable with change. So while it's important to start with the end in mind so you know where you're heading, it's really helpful to then pretty quickly shift back to just focus on that next tiny transformation that's going to get you further down the path to your ultimate goal. And again, all it takes to create a tiny transformation is to think differently, feel differently, and do differently over and over and over again to mark all those tiny transformations until you get to that end result. Anyone is capable of making pretty much any change they want following the simple process to tiny transformations. As a leader, like I mentioned, I suggest you go first. Practice this approach on yourself, get some wins under your belt, and then you're going to feel more confident coaching the people you lead to take this same approach to change. So, how do we actually do that? I've been in learning and leadership development for about 25 years. I know I'm aging myself. And I've been a people leader for at least 15 of those 25 years. But I didn't have my own major transformation till about 5 years ago when I learned about the concept of changing my thoughts to change my feelings to change my actions, which of course then changes my results. And even still, the real breakthrough came when I learned to approach these tiny transformations from 3 different angles: skill set, mindset, and energetics. Skill set being the tools, processes, frameworks, methodologies, like more traditional leadership development stuff. Mindset being the way I think about things, the way I see the world, and energetics being the practices that I can use to soothe my nervous system and widen my window of tolerance. Really, it's about emotional regulation. So let me ask you, how many times have you experienced leadership development and learned a new skill, which would fall in the do differently category of our little think differently, feel differently, do differently formula to tiny transformations? If you're like most leaders, probably a lot. Here's the thing, we can learn all the skills for effective leadership, but if we don't also think differently and feel differently, the chances of actually implementing those new skills are slim. It's going to be an uphill battle at best. When I learned about growth mindset and got my first of 4 coaching certifications as an immunity to change coach, I learned what it means to think differently, which resulted in feeling differently, which enabled me to do differently with much less effort and more joy than I had ever experienced in my leadership career. But wow, when I learned about widening my window of tolerance through nervous system work, so things like breath work, meditation, tapping, really anything to soothe my nervous system and learn emotional regulation, that's when things really took off. I have a ton of tools and resources to support you in all 3 of these areas: skill set, mindset, and energetics. My entire coaching program and the way I customize my work to work with leaders, to coach leaders, is a combination of all 3. But for today, I'm going to share some simple practices for each, Primarily mindset and energetics work, because skill set, again, is really just traditional leadership development. It's the tools, skills, processes, frameworks, things like that. It's the mindset and the energetics work that most people are missing. So that's what we're going to focus on. So, like I said, from a do differently perspective, this one's pretty straightforward. That's really about your skill set as a leader. So, what new skill do you need to learn or obtain to get you from where you are to where you want to go? What tool, process, framework can you learn? What book can you read? What class can you take? Answer that question, and you're going to get the answer to what do you need to do differently to get your new result. Flipping back up to the top, though, to think differently, that's where it gets a little bit troublesome. My favorite way to think differently is to ask myself, what are the facts versus what is the story I'm telling myself? The facts are what they are. You probably have very little or no control over them, but when you really reflect on what's happening, what the circumstances are, most of what you're thinking are facts are actually just thoughts, and thoughts are optional. Thoughts are just the story you're telling yourself. It's what you're making this situation mean. And while you have really no control over the facts, you have all of the control over the thoughts. Again, all thoughts are optional, all thoughts are changeable. So decide what you want to think instead. Practice that new thought, and now you're thinking differently. Thinking differently is the main ingredient to feeling differently. Our feelings are caused by our thoughts. And you can nurture and support the process by soothing your nervous system. Like I mentioned, when I learned this and started incorporating these tools into my day-to-day, my ability to create new outcomes skyrocketed. And more importantly, my ability to do that while feeling calm and confident and grounded and centered, really like complete game changer for my experience of leadership. My favorite fast way to do this is through breath work. I do several different breathwork activities, or exercises, but my favorite is probably the 4x8, just because it's super simple and it's easy to remember. You simply inhale through your nose for a count of 4, pause at the top, and then exhale through your mouth for a count of 8, and pause at the bottom, and then just repeat that a few times. Actually, let's do it together now. So that might feel weird. Bear with me, nobody's watching you. So I like to put my hand on my heart. You certainly don't need to. Close your eyes if you want to. Again, the focus is on the breath. So just kind of make a mental note of how you're feeling right now. Like, are you agitated? Are you annoyed? Are you frustrated? Are you already pretty calm and centered and grounded? In any event, just kind of make a check-in really quick with how you're feeling, and then we're going to breathe together. So inhale for 4 through your nose. Exhale twice as long through your mouth. Go again. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 8. One more time. In for 4. Out for 8. Awesome. How do you feel? More calm? Even if you weren't kind of heightened, it's so calming and it's so easy. Do this a few times a day, even to get started. And you are learning how to regulate your own nervous system. And the more you do this work, the more you widen your window of tolerance, meaning we all have kind of a set point of where we're in our optimal zone. When we get thrown out of our window of tolerance, we're either in that fight or flight or freeze fawn response. We want to widen our window of tolerance so we can stay calm, centered, focused more often in more challenging situations. And breath work, super simple way to train your nervous system to go wider and wider and wider, so you're able to respond instead of react to things that normally would create you to pop out of your optimal zone. Good job. Thank you for joining me on that. So there you have it. To recap everything we talked about, start with the end in mind when it comes to figuring out what you want to create, what is the new outcome, what is the goal, what is the desired result, but quickly reshift your focus back to tiny transformations to get you there. It greatly reduces the overwhelm that a lot of people experience on this journey. And then the formula for tiny transformations is super simple: think differently, feel differently, and do differently. You can challenge yourself to think differently by asking, what are the facts versus what is the story I'm telling myself? And then remembering that you have full control over the story. You can believe anything you want to believe. So choose thoughts that make you feel better, that make you feel committed, disciplined, confident, whatever feeling you need to create to get to your goal. You have control over that through the way you're thinking. And then support yourself to feel differently, again, first by ensuring you're choosing thoughts that help you feel the way you want to feel, but then add that additional layer of support with learning how to regulate your nervous system, breath work, tapping, meditation, things like that. Start to build daily practices through energetics and somatics work. Absolute flipping game changer. I cannot tell you how much this changed my entire experience of leadership. Please give it a try. And then finally, do differently by learning new skills and using your new thoughts and feelings to actually implement them, to actually make the changes that you're committed to making. So, this is what I do, and I would love to help you accelerate your journey to whatever the desired outcomes are that you want for your experience of leadership. Schedule a free discovery call today to explore what 12 weeks of coaching would look like for you, because you are the most important project you will ever work on. So don't convince yourself that you don't have time or you're not worth the investment. There is literally nothing more important for you to be working on than you. So message me and we'll get that call scheduled. And I will see you next week. Thanks for watching.